all. They did run that video tribute out after the first inning, and it was more cheers than boos then. So those who wanted to cheer and appreciate Rafael Devers for everything he brought to the Boston Red Sox, including helping them win the 2018 World Series, they were able to revel more positively, but not surprising that Devers would get mostly booed during the pregame introductions of the starting lineup and then booed when he stepped to the plate in the top of the first inning against Sonny Gray. So it goes. He did go deep, obviously, in addition to Drew Gilbert, who went deep in this one. But my goodness, story of the game beyond Devers returning to Boston was Logan Webb. My goodness. Had pitched pretty well in August, kind of along the lines of the June that he had before the poorer July, and he didn't get off to a good start. And that's one of the questions I want to get into here at 808 KNBR tonight, 415-808-5627. Logan Webb had a good year? Because I bet Logan Webb would tell you that he hasn't had a good year this year in 2026. Got off to a brutal start and then ended up on the injured list there in the early part of May. Came back and was awesome in June. Basically pitched his way in June. He was so good in June that he got to an all-star game based off of that and reputation, which is, I mean, that tells you something. And then brutal in July and bouncing back after the trade deadline in August. But his bottom of the third was just, I mean, he got swallowed up by a Friday night at Fenway Park and a Fenway Red Sox crowd in a froth, and he had no answer. Wilson Contreras hitting what I believe was the longest home run by any player at Fenway Park this season. So it's the second time this week that the Giants have given up the longest home run in a ballpark for this season. It happened the other night in Cleveland as well. Joe Adele, when he hit that long home run on Tuesday night, that was the longest home run by any Guardians player this year and any player inside Progressive Field. And Wilson Contreras hit the longest home run tonight, that 3-run shot that put the Red Sox up 3-1. Longest home run of the season by any Boston Red Sox player. And then things just got worse from there. Rutschman ended up singling in that third inning after it was 3-1. Durbin then singles. And then odd stuff here as Webb hit by pitch. Hits Duran. Then Monasterio walks. And then another hit by pitch. And that allows a run to score. And all of a sudden, Tony Vitello's coming out, and Logan Webb's getting the catcalls at Fenway Park, and his night's done. And it looked as if the Giants' night at that point was done, and it did prove to be done. It was 5-1 at that point. Ball game over, although the Giants did make it close in the fourth inning. They answered back with the back-to-back home runs from Drew Gilbert and then Rafael Devers. Some semblance of revenge, I guess. In Boston. Nice moment for Devers in his return. So it's 5-4, and Jung-Hoo Lee misplays a ball in right field. Insurance for the Red Sox, and the Red Sox pitching after Sonny Gray. And the Giants did a nice job making Sonny Gray work and kind of taking it to Sonny Gray in the first 3+ innings of the ball game. But then the Red Sox retire at one point 14 straight Giants right in the moment when it became a close game, from the final out of the fourth all the way to the first out of the ninth before Buddy Kennedy walked. And Aroldis Chapman able to get the final out of the ball game before Rafael Devers could potentially come up and really have a shot at a moment if he had come up as the tying run or if he had come up as the potential go-ahead run in his return, already having a home run in his back pocket. But it was not to be, as Chapman was able to keep Rafael Devers in the on-deck circle, and the Red Sox prevail in this series opener by that final of 6-4. So your thoughts on this one at 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. We've got the great Jacob Violante in the Daly City studios here tonight. We've got everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch as well. As the Giants lose this one, they drop now to 24 under at 52-76. They are 34 games under 500 since the Rafael Devers trade with the Giants and the Red Sox going at it. That is absolutely absurd to think about. 34 games under 500. I mean, that is the equivalent of a 64 and 98 season, essentially. Or I mean, I may be doing the math. I mean, that is brutal. Like they have been a horrific team since the Devers trade. So we'll get into that coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Adam Copeland's going to stop by. We'll talk a little Niners after the 49ers and the Chargers played last night. And Larry Krueger, we've got another Niners Nightly late night edition. Niners Nightly After Dark coming up. So Krug will stop by. We'll do a little face-off coming up before 9 o'clock. But your phone calls, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Coming up here, light them up. It's JD on a Friday night on the Sports Leader.
Giants fans, this is your hub to have your voice heard. SportsPhone KNBR. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, welcome back into the 8 o'clock hour. We're rolling along here. Giants lose 6-4 in Rafael Devers' return to Fenway Park. First game back after the big trade, June 15th of last year. Logan Webb, just a meltdown in the third inning. He gives up 5 runs. That's your ball game right there. Devers did go deep along with Drew Gilbert in this one, but the Giants fall to 24 games under 500, which is the new low here on August the 21st. All right, let's get to the people. 808 KNBR. Pete in the Peninsula is going to get us rolling here on the Sports Leader. What's up, Pete?
Oh, man, it's a long season, brother. I'll tell you what, man.
Yes, it is.
Couple things real quick. I would put Logan Webb on the shelf. I would not pitch him anymore this year. Let him fix his leg, whatever. They're 24 under. Call the kids up, let them play. Second thing, if I was a professional player and I just let off with one pitch, single, and then hit one out, and I get taken out, I'm breaking bats in the frickin' dugout. I don't understand this. They did it all the time in the last couple of years with these guys with that stupid platooning. If somebody's hot, let them frickin' hit. I don't get it. I don't get it, man. I'm
yeah, I mean, Gilbert, and I think you're talking about Drew Gilbert, and look, I think who went deep, and then the Red Sox bring in the lefties, and they go to Jonah Cox, and look, they had done it a lot in the Kapler-Farhan regime, and when they brought in Melvin, and then Farhan was gone, they wanted to get away from doing that. They really weren't doing it a lot at the beginning of this year with Vitello, but Gilbert, and I'm with you tonight specifically. I think each case is its own kind of decision. Gilbert has been brutal against left-handed pitching this year. But you know what? Who cares? It's August 21st. You're going up against a tough lefty. You've been hitting righties relatively well, really, all year. You've already gone deep at Fenway Park. Like, let him hit. I completely agree with you tonight. Like, what have you got to lose? The season is cooked anyway. It's been cooked for about 3.5 months. Like, let the guy maybe get better as a left-handed hitter going up against tough left-handed pitching, because that may very well prove to allow him to become a player that can be an everyday player at some point down the line in his career. It's all about development, and if it is, like getting Jonah Cox a couple of those at-bats doesn't do anything for me. So I'm with you 100% on that.
And also, real quick, and I'll let you go, these kids coming up need to play in Boston in front of that crowd. They need to know this is professional baseball. They need the experience. These veterans haven't shown me anything the last 2 years, maybe even 3 they've been up here. Like I said, I can barely stand to watch them. Get the kids up here, let them play. Like I said, the season's cooked, and I don't know what they're going to do about pitching, brother, but, man, they better turn it around over spring training. I don't know how they're going to do it. But, hey, thank you very much. Appreciate you taking a call. Have a good night, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Pete. Thank you. And I also agree with Pete on if you shut Logan Webb down, shut Logan Webb down. Like what anything that he's doing. I know he's a bulldog, and I know he wants to be out there, and I know he wants to snarl and pitch through it and be gritty and be stand up even in a miserable season. Logan Webb, that's what he is. That's who he is. I get it. Shut him down. Like, if he's even remotely banged up, because I made the note tonight, it doesn't sound like it was part of the post-game discussion in Boston tonight that he's injured or anything like that. But I made the note tonight, like, is he hurt? Is something going on? Because he absolutely melted in the Fenway Park spotlight tonight. Absolutely melted. The crowd was juiced. He gives up the bomb to Contreras and honestly looked rattled. He's walking dudes. He's hitting dudes with the bases loaded. Like, that is a Logan Webb that we have rarely seen in his big league career. And it just was a full-blown meltdown, one of the shortest outings of his entire career. And look, any innings that he would pitch over the course of the next 5 weeks that remain in this season are, as far as I'm concerned, innings that potentially could take away from his ability to be successful next year or be successful in 2028. And, oh, by the way, you have to figure and count on that now because they didn't trade him. So if you don't trade him, you sure as heck better make sure that he's capable of being a big-time contributor in the next couple of years. And, if anything, you look up and, coming into tonight, his overall numbers are really good. They typically always are. But, yeah, as void of pitching as the Giants are, and as much as they don't have anybody to step in and fill the spot, if you wanted to shut him down and make sure he was healthy for whatever becomes a 27, I would have no problem with that. Rick and Hayward next here on the Sports Leader. What's up, Rick?
Hey, hello, JD. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
How are you, Rick? I got you, brother.
Pretty good, but it's getting repetitively bad to watch the Giants play. Watching the game on TV, I wanted to hear a different opinion on the game, so I listened to WEEI and Dave Fleming's brother, Will, today. And Will brought up a very interesting thing in the third Rafi Devers at bat, where he said the Sox knew they weren't going to trade him because of his diminishing performance or numbers. They didn't trade him because of his numbers. They traded him to change the culture of the clubhouse. And what did you just bring up? What is the Giants' record since they traded for Devers? Isn't it?
Yeah, they're 34 under 500. I don't have the exact number, but it is 34 under 500.
No, they're 91 and 127. They were 41 and 30 when the trade was made on that Sunday.
Yeah, they get credit for being 10 over though. When he played, when he started playing, they were 10 over, and then they went 10 under. So it's 10 and 24. It's 34
right.
under. That's what he gets credit for.
Okay. So, it's semantics here. There's still 34 under 500 when he's played for the Giants. And the reason the Sox traded him was to change the culture in the locker room. Doesn't that tell you everything you need to know? I mean, not that I'm blaming Rafi on this whole situation. I blame a lot on Greg Johnson and ownership. I blame a lot on Buster Posey for lying to all of us and saying, "Oh, I never was told I needed to I didn't have a budget," or come on, that's total BS. After he couldn't get Sonny Gray and the $20 million the Cardinals were offering, and he didn't match whatever the Cardinals wanted, which was a starting pitcher from 3 years from now and a reliever. That's what the St. Louis got to give up Gray, and they gave up $20 million out of a $60 million contract. The Giants went out and they got Molly, Hauser, Hinchcus, and Foley. Those four salaries in 2025 equal $20 million. That's what Sonny Gray's getting this year. Now imagine if Sonny Gray was the third starter on this team right now. The Giants would probably be 66 and 61, maybe one game out of the wild card.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be that good, Rick. I really don't. He'd probably be their number two with Webb, and Webb missed time. And, look, they'd be better than they are, and thanks for the call. We're going to keep it moving here. I don't think they'd be 66 and 61 if they had Sonny Gray. We're not going to look at a team that's 24 under and look at like they're going to win 67 games and say, oh, yeah, if they had Sonny Gray, it would be completely flipped to the other. Like, no. Like that, we're not talking about a 15-game difference because they're 9 and 14 and Logan Webb starts, for crying out loud. Just because Boston's 18 and 3 or whatever the heck they are, and Sonny Gray starts doesn't mean that the Giants would be getting that automatically at this point. And look, in fairness, there was some poor communication from the Red Sox to Devers going back to before the 2025 season about the position stuff. And, he wasn't going to play third, and then he's going to be a DH, and then they want him to play first, and then he refused to play first and all that. I think the bigger picture question about Devers is, can he be your best player? Because when he was like the third, fourth, fifth best player for the Red Sox, they're able to be a contending team going back to the 2018 era when he's an up-and-comer. As he became closer to their best player, then there was some diminishing returns going on there. So that's something I think to file away for the future here moving forward. All right, let's keep it rolling. Glenn and Visalia is next here on the Sports Leader. Hey, Glenn, you're on Sports Phone with JD. Giants lose here, and we're talking about it on Friday night. What's up, Glenn?
Mr. Dixon, as I told Sandra, welcome back to San Francisco Giant baseball.
Yes, and it's Dickinson, and I appreciate you welcoming me back. I've been following the team all year and talking about them on these airwaves all year, so I haven't been anywhere. But if you're welcoming me back, I'm going to consider it kind, and I'm going to thank you, sir.
Yes, and JD, what we can't shut down Webb because the Giants got 9 remaining games before they get a day off. JD, if Webb does not pitch, the Giants going to lose 100 games, first time in a while. The Giants cannot lose 100 games this year, JD. The Giants must
Why not?
win 63. JD.
Why not? I can't, and I don't think they are going to lose 100 games. But who cares if they lose 100 games? All it's going to do is make the improvement
JD, I'm
next
proud
year.
of my team. I'm proud of my team. Come on.
Why
now.
would you be proud? I get you're proud of the franchise, but why? Nobody should be proud of this team. This team's been a complete and utter disappointment. Like, this team, this season, these players, doesn't mean you can't love the team and root for the team and you'll be back next year and all of that. But Logan Webb, you could pitch Tidwell, you could pitch Wisenhunt, you could pitch Roop, you can pitch Molina, who they picked up from Atlanta, you can pitch Tugboat Wilkinson, you can bring up other guys from the minor leagues. They got plenty of guys who can step up, step in, fill the role. And if they chose to go that route, and you know what, if they lose 100 games, no, it's just going to be the answer to a random trivia question 40 years from now. When's the last time they lost 100 games? I mean, it doesn't matter. And if anything, it'll make next year's improvement look like it's more significant, even if it's really not. So I don't think there's any value in fighting to win that 63rd game, Glenn. I really don't. I respect your opinion, but I couldn't give a rip.
You know what? But I know you loved your Giants. I know you got pride, and I agree. But just a thought, JD, of losing 100, because it's just bad. But JD, let me ask you a question. The Giants have 9 remaining games left before a DO, right? Day off. Correct?
Okay. I believe that is correct. Let me look. Yeah, they play all the way up until, I think it might be more than that. They play they have the 30th now off because they have a doubleheader before they go to Atlanta. So yes, they have technically 8 more days, but 9 more games in 8 days because they have a doubleheader on the 29th.
But JD, I want to say this, that you are very professional. You're very passionate, even when you do your Warrior stuff. I don't know how you do it, JD. Keep doing a great job. No, I'm serious, JD.
I appreciate it. Glenn, you're making me smile. I'm not laughing. I'm smiling because I appreciate your kindness, and I really do thank you for welcoming me back into this slot and for listening to the Warriors coverage and all of that. And you're right, I am passionate. And you know what? We don't have to agree to have a good conversation here on the airwaves, and I appreciate and respect your opinion, my friend. Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah, we are having a good conversation, though. Thank you, my friend. Bye, JD.
Have a great night. All right, Glenn's line open. 808 KNBR, let's take a timeout. We'll get to Oscar in Oakland coming up next here. And anybody else that wants to squawk before Adam Copeland joins me coming up at the bottom of the 8 o'clock hour here as the Giants lose 6-4 to the Red Sox. We're here. We're talking about it. on the Sports Leader.
Giants fans, this is your hub to have your voice heard. SportsPhone KNBR. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
And Devers drives one to center field. That's hit well. Rafaela going back, turns around, and that baby is gone. Straightaway center field for Devers.
Great moment for Devers.
About 4 rows back over that high wall in straightaway center field. Devers crosses home plate, claps his hands. His 26th home run of the year, and we're just going to guess here. That may be his favorite of the 26. Awesome.
You think?
Big moment for Rafael Devers. Yeah, he's going to hit 30 home runs. Jacob Violante making that note in my ear here as we come back. Sports Phone on a Friday. He hits number 26. Look, Devers' numbers are not going to look terrible when it's all said and done, despite the fact that he got off to a pretty brutal start in April. He has his moment. He absorbs the boos in the pregame introductions, and then when he stepped to the plate in the first inning, some cheers, more cheers when they played the vignette that they played at the end of the first inning inside Fenway Park with a lot of the great Boston memories of Rafael Devers and helping him win that 2018 World Series. He goes deep, but it's all for naught. Giants lose again, 52-76, their record now here on the season. A new low, 24 under 500 for the first time this season. We're back here, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. 6-4 the final tonight as Logan Webb gives up 5 in the third and turns a 1-0 Giants lead into a 5-1 deficit. Again, Giants made it 5-4, and then the bats went quiet right as it became a close game. 14 straight retired by the Red Sox pitchers against the Giants from the final out of the fourth all the way up until 1 out in the ninth before Buddy Kennedy walked, and the Giants will continue this series with the Red Sox tomorrow. All right, let's get to the phones here on the Sports Leader. Oscar in Oakland is next here on Sports Phone. Hey, Oscar.
Hi. You know, this is a good season for us Giant fans. I mean, we don't want to admit it, but, I mean, this year we should lose 100 games. There's no reason. We haven't swept one team. How should we not lose 100 games? And how should we not lose 100 games next year? What on earth would convince us Giant fans that we're not going to lose games next year? There's nothing any buster can tell us that's going to convince us to lose next year, the year after that, and the year after that. I'm totally convinced of that. And if we want to keep Buster around, that's fine, because I think he's the worst executive in sports. The deal he made with Boston, any other executive would be fired, and they would never be hired again, ever. If somebody
Oscar,
on Boston made
thanks for the call, bro. Oscar, thank you. Have a great night. Man, Oscar, like, different names. Like, I knew that I'm like, my eyes kind of glazed over. Like, all right, how long am I going to let him go? It's like, it's Oscar, it's Jim, it's Will. It's like how many different names, Jacob, does our guy Oscar call in with to run the same material over and 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 over again?
Dude, he's got aliases on aliases, and it's like scripted. Come on, come up with a different take, my man. Like,
I mean, seriously, who has the time? Who has the time to say, hey, you know what? The Giants lost again. Let's call and crush Buster Posey with the exact same take. I mean, it's almost like it's like recorded. It's almost like he's got a voice recording that he just hits play on, and it's the same thing, whether it's Oscar or Jeff or Mike or Will or Fernando or Paul or Dave or Jay or Johnny. Doesn't freaking matter. It's like, oh, hit play, same take, Buster stinks, 100 losses, 100 again, worst GM ever, Tibbs, talk about all the Dodger guy. Get out of here, Oscar.
He does love Tibbs.
If I got to hear Oscar, if I got to hear, I didn't let him get to Tibbs tonight. I didn't let Harrison, he didn't get to Harrison tonight. He didn't get, it's going to be Harrison this and Tibbs and everybody they traded. I don't have the patience for it tonight. And as many of these as I'm going to be saddled with between now and the end of the season, I'm going to have even less patience the next time. So just keep that in mind. Oscar or Dave or Milt or Benny or Craig or whoever the heck your real name is. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll switch some gears. We'll talk some football. Enough about this Giants mess. We'll do more of that coming up on Monday after they take on the Reds at Oracle Park here on the Sports Leader. But Adam Copeland will break down the 49ers and the Chargers. That's straight ahead right here on the Sports Leader.
This is where we feed the faithful. SportsPhone KNBR. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the Sports Leader.
Welcome back. Sports Phone here on a Friday night. John Dickinson sitting in, and let's go out to the UMA guest line. I don't know if this guy's ever been a guest on the UMA guest line, but host by day, guest by night. Adam Copeland, the fine host, of course, of Dirty Work with Derek Papa and 49er pre- and post-game here on the Sports Leader as well, with Todd Husak for the home games, with yours truly for the away games. And we were together last night, together now right here on the Sports Leader. Copes, thanks for taking some time out, brother. Appreciate you.
What's up, dude? I have been a guest before on the UMA guest line, but I'm really more of a Cache Creek text line or a Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line guy, as you well know, JD.
Yes, a big Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line guy. I am as well. Let's just dive into it. We had the pre- and post-game from the Chargers game. A lot of talk today about the younger players, in particular the young skill players in Dejon Stribling and Kalen Black. So I think you have to start there. We both were looking to see Dejon Stribling have the Charger game be an extension of the game against the Titans, and he delivered again.
Well, one of the 49ers' best skill sets last year, one of the things they did better, or the thing they did better than anybody, was convert on third down. And they lost one of their top receivers, who was great at that in the last couple of years, in Juwan Jennings. So taking Dejon Stribling, number 33 overall, I mean, I think the hope was not just to add more speed and athleticism, but also to try to replace a weapon that was going to help them pick up third downs. You also got to remember they're not going to have George Kittle seemingly for the beginning of the season. I know there was that Schefter report that said he's got a shot to play week 1. I think you and I are on the same page that it's more likely probably after the first month or sometime around that time, even if he's ahead of schedule. But having a player you can rely on third down, it was really nice to see Stribling out there with Brock Purdy. Now, if we're going to go to one demerit that we can hand out to Stribling, and you'd have to find one from game 1, and he corrected it game 2. Week 1 of the preseason against Tennessee, his only drop on 8 targets, he had 7 catches, was on the opening drive on third down. His only drop in game 2 on the 5 targets was what would have been a 33-yard touchdown grab. So that's stuff you want to see, change a little bit or hone in on. But the guy's a rookie, and he looked really good out there against the ones of Tennessee week 1. So a great addition. I don't need to see more of him, I don't think, in week 3 of the preseason, especially because I think I think the receiving room is not, I mean, we know it's not as deep now as it was on paper to start the year. It's also different looking than it did at the start of training camp without Ricky Pearsall. You've got the addition of Deebo Samuel. Still haven't seen Mike Evans. No Christian Kirk. And there's probably some debate or question as to whether or not he'll even start the year on the 53-man since he got hurt. I want to say it was day 1 or day 2 of practice at the start of training camp. So Stribling is as positive of a result or an outcome, I think, as a fan could have from a player they're hoping to see early in the season and to be a contributor. And it's nice to see a rookie receiver find his way into a game and find success even in the preseason under Kyle Shanahan. We'll see what it looks like when the season opens, but I think everybody's expecting to see a lot of him and be involved in the offense early on.
Well, they need him. I mean, that's the bottom line. The reason to say you've seen enough is point blank they need him, and you'd hate to see anything happen to him in a preseason game 3 after he's played so well that would put week 1 or anything potentially beyond week 1 in jeopardy. Talking with Adam Copeland here on the Sports Leader. Kalen Black, he was sort of the question mark. He felt a lot like last week's Dejon Stribling, right? He's the guy that you wanted to see. You wanted to see how he could potentially complement Christian McCaffrey should he get opportunities. And he, from the very first carry, I think showed an element that we really haven't seen from a lot of the other 49er running backs since Christian McCaffrey's been on this squad.
He's a different case. Like you just pointed out, Dejon Stribling is a guy that they need. Like they're going to rely on him to be a contributor this year. I tell you what, last night's game from Kalen Black, I think was big for him, absolutely. But I think it was big for kind of like calming some of those waters. Like week 1 of the preseason, we didn't know what his status was going to be. He was dealing with a bit of an injury. Jordan James has not been able to get on the field. He's been hurt as well. Isaac Guerrero is still working his way back and has seemingly played himself out of favor after the last couple of seasons. So this was a situation where it wasn't just about, hey, you need somebody for Christian McCaffrey. It's what does the depth of this running back room look like if you don't have Kalen Black or Jordan James healthy at the start of the season? That's why they had to bring Khalil Herbert back. Zamir White and Sir McCormick is here. So they've got a slew of guys who are back there right now and some vets who I think they'd probably like to hold on to one of those guys on the practice squad or as the third running back if Jordan James is not available at the start of the season. I think we're trending that way. But it was big, I think, to know that you've got another reliable piece. Not reliable, but a guy who you think after one game you can get some confidence out of. You expect to be a part of this offense. And I think his role expands as the year goes on. I pointed out to you before the game last night that the most success the Niners have had with using 2 running backs, in my mind, while Christian McCaffrey's been here, is the 2023 season where Elijah Mitchell kind of became the grinder at the end of games, where you didn't need McCaffrey to run out the clock when you're up 2 or 3 scores in the fourth quarter. You saw a lot of split carries at that point. You were able to spread him out wide and still go with a running back in the backfield. I think that's what Kalen Black maybe offers you down the road, but we saw some really strong runs, better runs last night. His opening run, we were watching it together, 5 yards. Then later on in that first drive, picks up a first down on a 3rd and 1 on an easy 2-yard carry. He's a guy who's going to bring a different style of running. And because they've got Deebo Samuel, I'm really intrigued to see how they use this backfield. Because Kyle Juszczyk will get carries at some point. Not tons of them, but he's a part of that backfield offense. You've got Deebo Samuel, who they're going to run tons of end-arounds with. I think you're going to see more of the wide back. I don't know why we would expect to see Deebo used in a different way. But if you add a different type of runner in the way that Kalen Black is, I think there's reason to be excited not about spelling McCaffrey. That's what everybody talks about. You'd never say, hey, Barry Bonds or Steph Curry, you need to take fewer threes and take fewer swings. You know what I mean? We got to get those guys less work. What you're looking for is somebody that gives breaks to McCaffrey or gives the Niners offense an opportunity to let McCaffrey operate at the highest level, because his yards per carry were not great last year. He ran into the backs of a lot of offensive linemen, and they didn't get much push. One of the worst, if not the worst, in the league in yards per carry last season. So it's not just about change of pace. It's about what does this allow in terms of diversity of the offense to do. And I think K'Wan Black offers you that opportunity. And he's really, you'd love to have a guy with this skill set as a true number two. Patrick Taylor never moved me. I was even nervous a couple years ago when Isaac Guerrero was the number two guy. It's like it's unreliable, unproven stuff. Same with K'Wan Black, but I think the style of runner and the role they're going to offer him, different than Elijah Mitchell in style, I think. I think it's going to give them some more diversity and versatility offensively.
Well, and it also, I think, is somebody in K'Wan Black that, like, let's say you are in the unfortunate position where maybe you don't have Christian McCaffrey. I feel like K'Wan Black gives Kyle Shanahan a running back that is nothing really like Christian McCaffrey, but is very much the style of runner that Kyle could build a different playbook around in an interim and be able to win with, essentially. And I think we've seen that before. He's shifty, but also powerful. And so, it wouldn't be the Christian McCaffrey offense necessarily, but I think the three really complement each other between Christian McCaffrey and Debo and K'Wan Black. And let's not forget Sincere McCormick. Who
I was going to ask you about that.
Maybe he might be playing his way onto this team toward the back end of the roster.
That's kind of what I was going to ask you. Is K'Wan Black? I think is they used the draft pick on him. They expected him to be in this running back room, but I think Jordan James may have been the odds-on favorite to be the number 3 guy or that third option for a JaMychal Hasty type. Somebody else back there the Niners could have. But if he's not ready, you'd love to go with a veteran as your third guy, and that's kind of the role Patrick Taylor had played. Now, if you're in that role, you probably got to play on some special teams too. That's sort of the third running back situation. That's something that Patrick Taylor did, and I think that's probably why he was here, and he had a relationship with Brant Boyer, but he's on the IR now. But I don't even know if it's a Black versus Sincere McCormick. I think if you don't have Jordan James, McCormick right now is the odds-on favorite to be that third back, and probably even a guy you could split carries between with Black as the number 2. Kind of a hybrid 2-3 is the way I see it.
Yeah, he's somebody that I think you're going to have to figure out a way to keep around, whether it's on the roster and or the practice squad. But I think running backs do frequently get picked up off of teams' practice squads, around the league. It seems like that's one position where guys get plucked more frequently due to injuries and teams potentially running similar systems and all of that. So I will see what happens with Jordan James in terms of the injury, because I do know the Niners like him, but it could be an opportunity for somebody like Sincere McCormick to find his way onto maybe the 53, depending upon how it plays out. A couple more minutes here with Adam Copeland joining me here, John Dickinson, Sports Phone on a Friday night. Cowing and Watkins. Watkins and Cowing. Cowing has the 83-yard punt return for a touchdown. Watkins has a nice game and a great block on one of the big Sincere McCormick runs. If it comes down to one versus the other, who do you think gives the 49ers the best chance to help on game day?
It's interesting because you're right. The as big as the touchdown reception and a couple of those big catches, I think there was a 24-yard grab out there from Watkins yesterday. As big as that was, the block is probably the one that Kyle Shanahan looks at and says, hey, that's how you perform and get playing time in this offense.
I sort of put it this way. Does the block, in essence, throw out the 83-yard touchdown, but if you're looking at it from the Kyle Shanahan lens, does the Watkins block on the big McCormick run, is that a greater net positive for Watkins than the negative of the field position, lost the ball in the lights for Cowing? Like, it feels like those could be the two things that ultimately maybe sway it one way or the other in Kyle's mind.
Sure, and if Jacob Cowing does fair catch that ball and it doesn't bounce and lose it in the lights and cost the Niners 30 yards in field position, are we even really having this discussion? I think that's a fair conversation, because the blocking is something that Kyle's looking at. No block, no rock for the receivers, and it's why it's been so tough seemingly under Kyle Shanahan for receivers to get playing time or get on the field. It's why guys like Juwan Jennings show up. He's one of the best blockers in the league, and he was out there really from his first year and got opportunities in the passing game later on. But this whole offense is predicated on running the football. So really the question you're asking, JD, is would you rather keep like potentially a slightly better receiver, because I think Watkins is the better receiver, or the guy who can legitimately change a game on special teams? There's one that's going to be a more long-standing, consistent one. There's another question and element here, and that's if you had to pick one, which is the guy that's more likely to pass through waivers or that you can put on the practice squad? And my thought is probably Cowing is my thought.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Cowing is the guy that would be more apt to be able to be put through, and you could bring him back. Watkins, I just think, would help you more if he had to play the wide receiver spot.
Agreed. Yeah.
I feel like even if you pencil him in as, say, your number 5 wide receiver right now, or if it winds up being your 6, depending upon how you do the numbers, I think if he's your 5, he's a 5 that if he had to, because of injury, bump up and be a 3, he would have the ability to be more productive more consistently than Cowing. And so I would still probably lean Watkins over Cowing, but they got to figure out the punt return thing. I mean, they put Debo back there in the game against the Chargers last night. Like, they are searching for somebody that can return punts and just catch punts.
If I had to go
about the 83, fair catch it.
No, I hear you. If I had to, there's a lot of avenues they could go here, right? Because that's the thought is I would assume if it's not Jacob Cowing and he doesn't make the team, and again, right now he probably, and this probably even depends on Christian Kirk and really what happens in this third game. He's got to prove he makes a mistake like in the third game or he muffs one. That's probably it. You know what I mean? You've got to prove that the 83-yarder wasn't an anomaly. But the offense is on the field a lot, and Kyle knows he's going to need a lot of receivers. When it comes to Cowing, in the grand scheme of it, I agree with you. Having that element of a guy who can break the game open, and we talked about it on the postgame. The Niners haven't had a punt return for a touchdown in a real game since 2011, the first game that Jim Harbaugh ever coached in San Francisco. So how big of a deal is one special teams play in player evaluation is kind of the question I would ask. And I would say it probably doesn't carry as much weight as the snaps that Jordan Watkins was playing in terms of the catches he made, the blocks that he laid, the routes that he ran. I think he offers you more offensively. And if you don't go with Cowing, Deebo Samuel offers you a fine option, I think, as a punt returner. I don't think he's elite. I don't think that's an excellent choice, and it's probably not ideal. But I think it offers you that. If you want to take that out and not put Cowing on the roster because you need a crunch somewhere else, I don't have a problem with that.
Quick one here. I know you got to get out to your Friday night, as we both do here, and head into the weekend. But on the defensive side, the defense played well in the game, but I don't know that there were a lot of individual standouts that I feel like made a name in terms of the active roster in the regular season. What did you make of the defense? Because they did play well, but did we learn anything that makes you feel better about some of the concerns that you might have had, pass rush or otherwise?
Well, there was a lot of talk this week about the secondary and how the secondary performed in the joint practice against the Chargers. I didn't think we saw anything that made me feel any different or think. I don't have higher hopes for the defense, I guess I should say, after that game against the Chargers. You know, again, 1 sack in the game, fine, but where is the pass rush? And this was an issue that they had in the joint practices. Osa Odighizuwa was moving the pocket, was potentially going to close on some sacks and couldn't get to Justin Herbert. This was, of course, reported out of the joint practices because there's nobody on the outside to clean it up. Now, if Bosa's there, maybe that's a little bit different, but you still don't have anybody on the opposite side, and that's something we've talked about for years. The one thing I'm looking at specifically and heading into week 3 of the preseason, Renardo Green, we'll see what his situation is, but Jack Jones seemingly played pretty well. A guy who'd been with the Patriots and the Raiders, he's looking to find some footing, and if he's like the veteran backup or he's your third guy or can spell Renardo Green if he's not able to go, that's a guy that I'm watching for to try to make some noise or really be noticeable. He had a couple of nice plays, had a deflection, and batted a pass away in the end zone yesterday against the Chargers. I think it was a Trey Lance pass on a fade into the corner, and he batted it away. So at corner, I guess that's a position that I feel, I don't want Green to go down, but I feel a little bit better with how Jack Jones played, and I've got some high hopes for him. But other than that, it's a you got to show me, man. I mean, again, 20 sacks last year in 17 games, an all-time franchise low for a team that's been around since the 40s. And, JD, they used to play 14 games a year, and they had more sacks than that. So, they've got a lot to prove, and I don't think we're going to know or see any of that until week 1 and beyond.
No, I would agree with that in a major way. Copes, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking some time out. We'll be together before and after the preseason game number 3, 49ers and the Raiders from Vegas. And, of course, you can catch Dirty Work every day from 2 until 6 right here on the Sports Leader. Appreciate you, brother.
Have a good weekend, JD. Talk to you soon, bro.
All right, sounds good. That's Adam Copeland. Appreciate him for joining me. More Sports Phone coming up right here on the Sports Leader.
This is where we feed the faithful. SportsPhone KNBR. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the Sports Leader.
All right, welcome back. Sports Phone on a Friday night, final segment. John Dickinson here with you. Coming up in about 10 minutes is Niners Nightly, our special Niners Nightly After Dark. I like these. We had one of these on Tuesday, another one tonight. A busy week for the 49ers as they spent the last few days down in Los Angeles. The nice win in preseason game number 2 over the Chargers. And joining me to discuss that and everything else as we lead into Niners Nightly is, of course, the great Larry Krueger. What's going on, Krug?
JD, what's going on, man? Niners 41-17. I guess maybe that joint practice nightmare that everybody was talking about, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal.
Well, that's where I wanted to start because I think, and we talked about this in the same segment on Tuesday night, the fact that it wasn't the 49ers' best day really on either side of the ball on Tuesday down at the Chargers practice facility. And you were down there. And I think there was a lot of concern. And I know you laid out exactly what meant the most to you or didn't, mean a lot in terms of the things that went well or maybe more importantly didn't go well. But it felt as if the game in SoFi was completely the opposite in many respects to what we saw in the joint practices. Is that an oversimplification in your mind?
Well, no. I think the Chargers' decimation of the Niners on Tuesday was overblown. That was overblown. The Niner offense did a lot of good things against the Charger defense throughout that day. Then they got in the red zone, and Derwin James made a couple plays on the ball, and in the move the ball drill, they weren't quite as crisp and as sharp as they needed to be, and the Chargers had a little momentum going, but it was just a random practice day. It wasn't like we were watching the 75 Steelers against an expansion team or something. It wasn't some disaster. And then defensively, the 49ers, without Bosa and without McKell, are going to struggle to put up pass rush. But then a lot of those, I was watching the other side on the binoculars, and there were several runs where I saw, linebackers of the Niners kind of tag off, and the runners kept, continuing downfield. And, I think it looked worse than it was. I think actually the 49er defense, struggled to set the edge in the run game, struggled to burn the edge pass rush wise, and struggled a little bit with some of the Chargers' speed. They have a lot of speed, but I think it was kind of overblown. Or maybe the 49ers were, turned off by Brennan Thompson's, hey man, we dominated them, and the Niners came to play. But 49ers have two really good quarterbacks in Brock Purdy and Mac Jones, and they played, Purdy played a little bit, and then Jones came on and played a little bit more, where the Chargers only played one series of Herbert, and then it was Trey Lance, and Trey Lance is struggling, and then DJ Uiagalelei is he's got a great arm, he's a traits-based prospect, but he's not a ready-made NFL quarterback. So, those guys came in and were, 17 of 31, one touchdown, and they just didn't move the ball that well. So maybe it was just the Chargers quarterbacks weren't all that great.
Well, I wanted to get into that, and I think you're right. And I do want to touch on Dejon Stribling, of course, and Kalen Black, because I think those were the two major standouts again for the 49ers, and it's 2 weeks in a row for Stribling. And Kalen Black was sort of the guy in the Stribling role, I felt like, going into the Charger game, in that everybody wanted to see what he had in the tank and could he deliver. And I think he did in a big way. But let's start with the Niner defense, actually, because we talked a lot about how there's so much talent and you don't really know how the talent is going to fit. They played pretty well, but I was talking to Copes a little bit about this. The defense played well, but I didn't necessarily come out of the game thinking that anything that I saw made me feel more confidently about the regular season than maybe I was to begin with. How do you sort of parse through? And a lot of that is the guys that were playing on the Chargers side of it, but they did play well last night, the guys who were out there. So what did you think of just the 49er defense overall in terms of the guys who did get opportunities to play?
Well, there's a lot of young defensive players who really flew around and made a lot of plays. Just looking at the box score, Jalen Stroman, the rookie safety from Notre Dame, I thought he put himself on the map. He had a really good game. Tatum Bethune had another really good game. 2 TFLs, 6 tackles. He was flying around. Nick Martin, Garrett Wallow, Ephesians Prysock, Jacob Robinson, Sam Aquinu played really, really well. Jaden Duggar. So there was a number of defensive players that, really shined. I think maybe if there's a couple themes, one is that the Niners' young defensive tackle group of Bryson Eason, James Thompson, and Grayson Halton are outplaying CJ West and Alfred Collins. And what's going to come of that? What's going to happen there? And I don't think there's any question. Here's the other thing. It's like Raheem Morris is the new regime. And West and Collins were drafted by the old regime. It's the same general manager, and it's not like those guys don't have allies within the organization, but it's the Raheem Morris show. And Raheem,
and we know the coaching staff has a big role in draft picks. And to your point, that was the Robert Saleh regime in terms of that.
And James Thompson Jr., the rookie from Illinois, and before that Wisconsin, was the highest graded 49er defensive player across the board of all. So he's playing well. Bryson Eason's playing well. Grayson Halton didn't suit up in this game because he's got a little bit of an injury, but he's playing even better. So those three guys are giving the 49ers more than CJ West and Alfred Collins. And if you and the Niners even re-signed Evan Anderson the other day, I think they're on the verge of either cutting or trading CJ West or Alfred Collins.
Wow. I mean, and that it's interesting because as you look at the depth chart, that you can't keep everybody. That's the one thing that I think you know for sure is that you're not going to be able to keep all of the young talent and a lot of it that they like among that group. But I think the other thing that stood out to me just defensively still is there's a lot of interior talent, and I'm still kind of waiting for who the guys are going to be on the outside that are going to step up. Not named Nick Bosa, assuming Nick Bosa is healthy. So that's still to me is a concern. I think they had the one sack late. But look, I'm not enamored with stats and collective team performances necessarily in the preseason, but I'm waiting for guys to flash in that vein. And it hasn't happened to the extent that I think I want to see. I've seen it at other positions. A lot of the guys you laid out, I've seen it in terms of a bunch of these guys on the inside of the defensive line. I'm still kind of waiting to see it on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, they had 20 sacks last year, and their big addition on the defensive end spot is Romello Height. I mean, Romello Height is not Aldon Smith.
No.
This is not, he's not the kind of guy that's going to come in and just light it up. He's a 240-pound pass rush specialist who has to be played in a rotation with other guys. And, I think this defensive end group is going to look pretty good once Bosa and Mikel are healthy, because you'll have Bosa, Mikel, Sam O, Keon White, Romello Height, Ogbo Okoronkwo played well. And so I think you're probably covered. But, man, I mean, if you could add one more significant defensive end, I think that would be in their best interest. Because, I mean, Quentin Bell just signed off the street.
Right.
Titus Leo was cut the other day, but he was playing first quarter snaps. Victor Dimukeje, Xavier Thomas. These are waiver wire, guys. These are bottom of the barrel roster kinds of guys. And, you don't have one of them. You have like four of them. So they could definitely use one more defensive end.
No, I think definitely on somebody from the outside, but I don't know necessarily that a street free agent right now is the order of the day. Here's the other thing that's popped up this week. I've sort of opined that I think the Niners are waiting to see what they have, and I think they like a lot of what they have on the interior, as I've mentioned a couple of times, but I think they're waiting to see what they have, how good they are, how much they get out of Nick Bosa, how much Raheem Morris can scheme things up. And then if they truly feel they need one more outside guy, they'll look to make that move at the deadline. And if they think that move will put them over the top in terms of Super Bowl contention, they will be willing to give up a premium to make it happen. And in essence, waiting is not the end of the world. I know there's a lot of, they missed out on Von Miller and you could have got this other guy. There's a lot of wanting to make it happen now. Where are you on, does it need to happen now, or can the 49ers play the season out a little bit, see what they have, and if they are that one pass rusher away, re-engage on somebody like a Max Crosby that it's going to take a lot to get, or re-engage on somebody else that may pop free here as other teams sort of fall out of the race?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to play your hand of cards here. I mean, one thing you don't want to do is you got a number of older players. I don't know that you want to move a lot of draft pick capital for the 27 draft, before your status as a contender. But I don't know if I want to trade, because those same picks that you're trading away, right now for an extra player, you're going to want to be getting more picks by the middle of the year if the bottom falls out with some of your veterans. So you got to remember that. But then you look at the Niners' schedule, and you see, look at September. They got the Rams in Australia, but then you got Dolphins, Cardinals.
Gotta win.
Yeah, Broncos. You got the Commanders after Seattle. You got Atlanta. You got Raiders. Literally going into the middle of November, you have a stretch there where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5, maybe 6 very winnable games. So I don't know that I would want to wait until the bye week, which is week 8, which is right when the trade deadline is. I don't know if I'd want to wait to the bye week to add something, because I think you may need to bank wins over Atlanta, Washington, Arizona, Miami to withstand December. In December, you're on the road against the Giants in the cold weather. Then you're at home against the Rams. You're in LA on a short week against the Chargers. You're at Arrowhead against the Chiefs. You're home against the Eagles, and then you have Arizona to finish. But that's a 1, 2, 3, 4. That's kind of a 5 or 6 week stretch there, because you play Seattle as well in week 12. That's a 6-week stretch that's really difficult. And so I think you need to bank wins early. So I don't know that I would be wasting too much time in the first half of the year. I mean, you're a contending team. You see yourself as a contender. It would take a lot of disappointment and a lot of bad things for them not to be a contender. So I know what you're saying, though. You don't want to trade a bunch of draft capital, but if you're trading a player like a Mac Jones or a Curtis Rourke or somebody like that, or a player that you don't think fits, an Alfred Collins, I think you might see that kind of a trade earlier. But the hired gun type trade more towards the deadline.
Well, and maybe they can't wait. I mean, that could come to fruition.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you. I mean, it's in the sense that, yeah, you have to beat, the Rams game is the Rams game. You have to beat Miami. You have to beat the Cardinals. You have to, at a minimum, I think, beat the Commanders and the Raiders at that point, and probably Atlanta. And if you need to be no worse, I think, probably than 5-3. 4-4, I think, would feel like a disappointment. So 5-3 almost feels like the baseline. How do you get to that if maybe you lose to Denver, Seattle, and the Rams? And not saying that that's a guarantee, but if you lose those 3, then you basically have to run the table in those other games. But I think even if they are 5-3, they'd know, obviously, at that point that they'd have to add moving forward. You're listening to KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus Media station, as we get into the 9 o'clock hour here. Niners Nightly coming up with Krug. We're doing a little Sports Phone Niners Nightly crossover on the Friday night before Niners Nightly after dark here. So we'll just kind of keep things rolling here, Krug. Always great to have an opportunity to chat with you. And I'll let you kind of take the reins here coming up as we get into the 9 o'clock hour. But I wanted to ask you about Brock Purdy, but I also think we need to get to Dejon Stribling and Kalen Black, because I think those two were the headliners from the game in LA against the Chargers. Yes, I know Stribling had the drop on the would-be touchdown, but I think he just continued to impress as an extension of his first game. And I thought Kalen Black, I mean, the numbers were not necessarily flashy, but the running style I thought was a big time statement. Just give me your thoughts on Kalen Black in his preseason debut, and Dejon Stribling getting an opportunity to work with Brock Purdy and Mac Jones for the first time here in the preseason.
Kalen Black's interesting. I'll compare him to like an NBA rookie who is ready to contribute and is really refined across the board. Some guys look impressive. Oh, look at this guy, and look at his jumper, or look at his vertical, or look at his, above the rim game, or look at his athleticism, and everybody like, oh, look at that guy. But then does he really know how to play, and does he do the little things that it takes to win? And, can he play in the fourth quarter? Does Kerr trust him in the fourth quarter? And there's all kinds of things like that. Well, it's the same kind of thing in football. I mean, wow, you can show strength or power or speed or, catching ability or, but then it's like, how much do we get to trust this guy with the money, with the, money on the table, the game on the line, all those cliches? But it really is true. And those it's a nuanced deal, but Bobby Turner is an old school throwback coach. And he just demands that if you're going to be a running back, you can't just be a nominal blocker. You have to be a willing blocker, and you have to do it well. And this guy is Kalon Black is a stone you in the hole kind of a blocker. We saw that last night. I mean, it reminds me of Garrison Hurst or, Frank Gore back in his prime. Just a powerhouse guy that's going to just stripe on a stripe, and you're going to have to truck me, or I'm going to, you're going to have to go through me if you're getting to the quarterback. He's just such a good blocker. And then he's a pretty natural receiver, even though he wasn't utilized that way at Indiana. And he hits the hole. He reads the blocks, and he just does a lot of things very efficiently. And I don't even think last night was one of his better games. I thought he misread a number of the runs, but his heart is, a great running back. If you can feel the will of a great running back. You could feel the will of Emmitt Smith in the 90s. And, you could feel the will at times of Walter Payton in the late 70s and early 80s. You could feel the will of great backs. And you can kind of feel the will of Kalon Black. He is really tough. So he adds a lot of toughness, a really good blocker. He's a better blocker than CMC. He can run in short yardage with power and keep the chains moving. He can catch it out of the backfield. Very trustworthy, very competitive. So, yeah. I mean, they got – and then Stribling, another guy, he's a rookie in name only. He's very mature. He's got big hands, and he catches away from his frame, and he's a willing blocker, and he's really tough. He's like the son of a military guy. He's not intimidated by a lot of the yapping that you see in the NFL. He doesn't get caught up in it. He comes down with these 50-50 grabs. He made a catch in the end zone in El Segundo from Mac Jones on a back shoulder, where the defender was not fooled, and it was like a sea of hands going for the ball, and he just took one extra step back towards the ball and plucked it out of the air with his hands. He's got very strong hands. So yeah, I mean, the Niners needed not just a good draft. They didn't need just guys to make the team. They need guys who can lead the charge. And in Stribling and Black, that's what they got.
Now, they did in a big way, and I think it maybe changes the conversation. I mean, go back to draft night and all the heat that the 49ers were taking. And look, you never know. I mean, to me, it's always, you can have an opinion on where somebody is selected, but the thing that I always keep in the back of my mind, Krug, is if guys prove that they can play immediately, even a handful of them, it doesn't have to be everybody, but especially your top picks, if they prove that they can get on the field immediately, everybody's going to forget where exactly they were picked and whether or not they were a reach. And you only get into they should have taken this guy or that guy when the other guys are playing and your guys are not seeing the field because they haven't earned the opportunity. And then everybody kind of wonders why. That's not, it looks like, going to be the case with Stribling or Kalon Black.
I used to have a saying at the end of my show when I hosted SportsPhone in the 90s. At the end of the night, I'd be like, all right, Larry Krueger, often wrong, seldom in doubt. Then we'd all laugh, and I'd say, good night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 7. I love that people are passionate about football and passionate about the Niners, but people just were getting downright indignant about, John Lynch effed it up. And it's like, dude, you spent an hour and a half. And he's spent hundreds of hours. And I'm not saying defer. I don't defer to anybody. But, if all if all you're armed with is the consensus opinion that I've noticed in the mock drafts, whatever the heck that means, is that Stribling should go between 60 and 80, and that he goes, 34 or whatever, 33.
Yeah, 33.
Yeah. And that's all and you're going to take John Lynch and the Niners personnel department, groups of guys who are pretty damn smart, spend a ton of time on this. I'm not saying they're not fallible and not without criticism or whatever. Not, you can't criticize. You can criticize. But, I mean, temper it. temper your criticism knowingly. I mean, I've run that film back and forth. I used to work for the Arizona Cardinals. I've done personnel in the Canadian League. I've sat there for hours making my contact lens prescription go bad as I'm rolling film back and forth, looking for answers on this film endlessly. And I know what it means to roll that film back and forth for like 35 hours over the course of a week, as opposed to what we do, where I feel like I'm all over it, but I'm spending an hour here, an hour there, 2 hours here, 4 hours there. I'm not camped out watching every element of practice film and every single player, 1,000 eligible players for the draft. So I'm going to tell you what I think, and I'm not going to pull any punches, but we know. I spent 5 minutes on it, and I know more than John Lynch is tired. And it's like that for baseball too. It's like I went to one game and Buster Posey's an idiot. Okay, all right, but I mean that's not reality. It's not balanced. It doesn't represent the time invested. And just think of it this way: if somebody came to your place of work, where you're investing 40 hours or 50 hours a week in your job, and you know that they're spending 45 minutes to an hour and a half researching the kinds of things that you do at your job, and then they start telling you what's wrong, where you're screwed up and why they're right and you're wrong, you'd be like, what do you know about it? It'd be like if somebody's sitting there telling you and I all about how to host a successful radio show, and you don't have a radio show and you've never had a freaking radio show, but you're going to tell Larry Krueger and John Dickinson, who've been on the radio combined for 3 decades, how to do a radio show. I mean, I'm not saying that we couldn't take some criticism, but just check yourself, people. That's all I would say.
No doubt. And so it's interesting because, again, to me, it just comes down to if the guys that you pick can get on the field and contribute in a meaningful way, and it looks like Stribling and Kalon Black at a minimum are going to do that. Well, there are some others that might as well. Then to me, everything should calm down. And this is where I do think some of the criticism has been fair over the years. It's not you should have taken this guy, at a different spot because of consensus or anything like that. It's more just the Niners too often have had guys that for whatever reason haven't been on the field, and then others picked either around them or after them, or guys that potentially they could have gotten have been more productive. Like, that's to me a different conversation than the obsession with consensus, because I'm with you. I mean that I was I was out on that. Like I was kind of wondering about these picks, but it's funny because Stribling and Black are the two in particular that I thought, well, let's just wait and see if they can play or not, come September the 10th and be contributors. And if they can't, then we'll have a conversation about the drafts and the years and all that. But if they can, then this is much ado about nothing at this point.
Well, I will say this. I mean, and I'm as critical as many, if not more critical than some. But I just think that what you're really looking for in the draft is you're looking for that cross section of guys who have the collegiate production. They can play football, because it's not a track meet. It's football. It's a game. It's like me telling you, oh yeah, this guy's going to be an awesome power forward. Why? Oh, dude, he's 6'9", he's 255. He's okay, but he could. I could hand you a guy that's 6'9", 255. But what if he can't play basketball? Right? Then all of a sudden it's like, Krug, he's 6'9", 255. You're right, but he can't play basketball. So these are skill-based games. So you got to be good at the game, first of all, before your athleticism. You got to be good at the game. Now, then you get a group of guys that are really good at football. Then you got to look for the guys that are really good at football who also have those advanced traits athletically, because the NFL is about athletic freaks, and guys with athletic traits are commonplace in the NFL. So once you're picking from that group of players, he's a great college football player, and he has really advanced high-level, 90th percentile type traits of strength and speed, flexibility, quickness, that kind of thing. That's when you draft the guy, and that's Kalon Black, and that's Dejon Stribling. Dejon Stribling was really, really productive in college, but he also ran 4.36, 10-inch hands. And he's got a lot of real great testing numbers. Kalon Black blocks like a crazed guy, and it was really good at Indiana. They won the national championship. But he also, is really, really strong and really, really quick and a dominant athlete. It's like, so you got to have both. If you go for athletes that aren't college football players, you wind up with, the Danny Grays of the world or whatever, guys that look great and they're running fast, but they don't actually play. Or if you're looking for guys that they play great, but they don't have NFL measurables, well, then you got Junior Bergen left and right. He was a great player for the Montana Bobcats or whatever, but he doesn't have NFL high-level traits. So he kind of tops out as just a low-level backup type player. So when you hunt for the combo, great production, great traits, you wind up with Alden Smith. You wind up with Jerry Rice. You wind up with Dejon Stribling. And the Niners, I think did that this year. They weren't as concerned about the consensus boards, and they just handicapped it and said, we want productive football players who have high-end athletic traits. They married those guys together, and I think are going to benefit greatly for it.
Last thing I wanted to touch on, and then now we're well into the 9 o'clock hour here in Niners Nightly After Dark, Krug. So I want to let you kind of steer and set up your show for the remainder of the hour. But the one thing I promised you from Tuesday, Brock Purdy's preseason to this point, his training camp specifically, obviously gets out in L.A. last night, plays in the one series. What is a Brock Purdy leap? What would that look like to you? I've been asking a bunch of different people just to get their thoughts, because there is a poise and just a confidence that I've noticed from the days that I've been out of practice and watching Brock Purdy and the way he's talked in the press conferences and even small extension of that last night. I love the third down conversions and the cohesiveness between him and Stribling so quickly. Could we be witnessing almost I wouldn't call it a breakout because he's already broken out, but a leap, one of those, third, fourth year leaps that sometimes happens where guys have their best year, right around this point in their respective careers at the quarterback position?
Yeah, I think you're centering on something. I mean, Brock's game is not about stats. Brock's game is about, he is a competitive son of a gun and he wants to win. And he measures success by victory. And it's not about fantasy stats or this or that. But I think his numbers could look better this year. It's about being supported. Brian Billick used to come on regularly on KNBR with Fitz and Brooks back in the day. And he used to talk about how the hardest thing to evaluate in the NFL is the quarterback versus what's going on around the quarterback. And a lot of times, we compare quarterbacks to one another, but they're not equally supported. I mean, people would sit there a couple of years ago and be like, Brock Purdy's nowhere close to as good as Jalen Hurts. What? Brock Purdy's way better than Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts was supported at a really high level. He had a really great run game, Saquon Barkley. He had a Hall of Fame offensive line. He had a defensive line that had all kinds of pass rush and talent. Vic Fangio coordinating, and they won the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl. And can Brock win the Super Bowl? Yeah. But they need to support him better. And that means they need to build a wall around him. And it'd be really nice if they could run the ball. I mean, last year, his thing eroded. They couldn't run it. There was like 5 different games. They couldn't average 3 yards a carry. Then all of a sudden, guys started falling like flies. There was no Debo. Ayuk got hurt. There was no Ayuk. There was no Kittle at the end of the year. I mean, he's out there just kind of running around. The line wasn't great. Didn't have much of a run game. He's throwing it to Demarcus Robinson. And still, they found a way to beat Philly and Philly. So I think Brock this year is going to be supported better. I think they're going to run the ball more effectively. I think, they're going to have more talent around him. I think they're going to block it better in front of him. I think he's going to have more dynamic weapons, on his offense to deal with. And I think he's going to have more downfield passing. And I think his numbers are going to be a little bit bigger. And now it's a matter of, can he take care of the football and be patient? But yeah, I think the main difference is just the support. Brock Purdy is being supported better than he was a year ago. And I think you're going to see what that looks like. I think he's going to run off a number of wins. I think the 49ers are an 11-12 win type team. I think he's a legitimate MVP candidate.
Yeah, it feels set up, and you said it right there at the end where I was going. It feels like it's set up for him to be an MVP candidate for this year. Like he's going to be in that conversation just based on the way the 49ers are going to win, and I think they are going to win enough to put him in that conversation.
And he's going to be, he's going to play his butt off because he's got Mac Jones sitting right there. And if he and that's good for the Niners because that means that motivates Purdy. A motivated Purdy's the best Purdy.
They just got to figure out left guard, Krug.
Yes, and then they got two quarterbacks they can win with. If Mac Jones has got to play, I think they feel like they're going to win all those games. So you're right. Left guard is a problem, and they need more edge rush. And right now they're going to have to figure out how to kind of solve their glut of defensive tackles. And can they trade? Can they make an advantageous trade? I think the cut down is going to be interesting. Howie Roseman's a great GM. It seems like he always does one thing at the cut down that makes his team that much better. I mean, John Schneider went for Terrion Arnold and then Trevon Diggs, and we're hearing Les Snead's going to try to go for, not just Myles Garrett, but maybe Aaron Donald. And I'd like to see the 49ers, instead of rolling over $71 million, I'd love to see them make an astute trade or a pickup or two to add an extra piece or two to the puzzle because I think it's their go window. I think the 49ers can win, double digits, get to the playoffs, and contend for a Super Bowl this year. So I'd love to see them, be aggressive at the trade deadline. If they can find, or at the cut down, if they can find a guard, if they can find another edge rusher, to go with what they've got, I think you may see them get creative trade wise. I really do.
Well, Krug, I love talking to you. Where do you want to go with it? We're well into your hour here on Niners Nightly. So you got anything for me, or how do you want to kind of set up your show here for the rest of this hour?
Yeah, I mean, 808 KNBR is the number. I would like to know. I want to know who you're passionate about. Give me a player that's on the bubble that you're passionate should be on the roster, and tell me why. Give me a player that could be on the bubble, or at least is on your bubble, that you're passionate about not being on the roster. And I'll throw it to you, JD, and then in the next segment, I'll get into it and share some of my own. But who do we know CMC is going to be there. We know Purdy's going to be there. We know Kittle's going to be there. We know all those guys. But what about, Jordan Watkins?
It's a great segue into the two young wide receivers, brother. That's exactly where I was going with it. Is it Watkins or Cowing? Is it Cowing or Watkins? Is it both of them? Christian Kirk, I think, is on the bubble for having not been a factor since the first day of training camp and being banged up ever since there. I think the Watkins-Cowing debate is fascinating because on the one hand, you've got Cowing who in some ways steals the show last night, right? The 83-yard punt return, but then he also loses one in the lights and costs the 49ers 30 yards of field position. And Kyle Shanahan, you could tell even after the game as he was asked basically to praise Cowing, was very quick to say, yeah, that was a pretty bad mistake on the other one, and we love the touchdown. But it kind of made me wonder: was the mistake in Kyle's eyes more damning than the 83-yard touchdown on the punt could make up for in that particular instance? And then after the game, all the discussion about all the injuries and what Cowing has overcome and all that, and then as far as Jordan Watkins goes, I thought he had a really solid game. He had a couple of nice catches. He had, I think, the key block on the Sincere McCormick big run. And anybody that knows Kyle Shanahan, and you've already mentioned it in this segment, like, how do you block as a wide receiver? That's important. I feel like Watkins is a guy, as much as Cowing flashed, I feel like Watkins is a guy who, if you needed him in a meaningful game, he has the ability to bring more to the table, even if he starts the year as maybe wide receiver 5. Wide receiver 5 on September 10th doesn't mean you're going to be wide receiver 5 on October 25th or on November 15th or on December 27th. So I kind of, everybody's talking about Cowing coming out of the Charger game. I was sort of left with, I liked what Watkins did to improve his fate. And look, maybe it winds up being both. but one versus the other, I would still tend to give Watkins the edge there.
I would too. But I think there's a chance that they both make the roster. I'll give you one hint.
Well, if Kirk isn't, right, then both of them could. If
right.
Kirk,
Well, I mean, and Kirk's the veteran. I think Kirk, could be an attractive trade candidate for a team like the Texans. We'll see. But then there's a whole slew of young defensive players too. I mean, Jacob Robinson is a 4-3 corner from BYU. Almost had a pick 6 last night. He looks really, really good. I'd like to see them retain their cornerback inventory. They got a lot of guys right now. I mean, Renardo Green, Demo Noor, Upton Stout, those are the top 3. But then you got Jack Jones, you got Ephesians Prysock. Nate Hobbs is hurt, but they got him. They got Jacob Robinson. They got Darrell Luter. I mean, they've got a bunch of corners. And in past years, we've seen them like cut it down, say goodbye to a good corner, Samuel Womack, Deshaun Jameson, have those guys go somewhere and play well. And then an injury pops in, and all of a sudden the 49ers are looking for, street free agents on the corner, and they're really hard to find once you get into the teeth and the meat and potatoes of the season. So I'd like to see them retain their corner depth. Go with Luter, go with Robinson. If you got to go with an extra corner in week 1, so be it. It's a passing league, and if you run out of corners, you're kind of screwed. And I like what I've seen out of Luter and Robinson, and I know they're kind of back of depth chart kinds of corners, but I think they could be starters for a lot of teams, and if they hit the waiver wire, they are as good as gone. So I'd like to see them figure out a way, with all the roster, gymnastics to keep 7 corners possibly if that's the way it all shakes out. So, but 808 KNBR, I mean, we'll open up the lines and see what people have to say, and I'm going to share some thoughts. But 808 KNBR, if you're driving around, you watch the Niners in the preseason, either of the first 2 games, give me somebody that you're passionate about them being on the team, passionate about them not being on the team. 808 KNBR, we'll get into it more next. And JD, man, it's always great to rap with you. And you and I could, we're like the human rain delay, man. We could go on and on. And, we're not John Miller, but we're, we could fill the time.
Well, I missed out last night on your stream after the post game. I love coming on the Krug show after a Niner game, after I'm done with the post game on the Sports Leader here, and didn't quite work out timing wise. Sometimes with those road games, it doesn't. But I always feel like I always go to bed wishing I had hopped on last night. So I'm sorry I missed you, bro.
Well, the audience in the chat was like, "Hey, where's JD?" So
we're making up for it here with the last half hour.
Yeah, exactly. He's on the radio. What do you mean, JD? Awesome stuff. Thanks for. I mean, I guess I was your guest at the start. Now you're my guest at the end. But thanks for bridging the gap between SportsPhone and Niners Nightly. Huge fans of your work. Keep it rolling, man. We'll do a lot of segments this year. All right, we got more straight ahead. Niners Nightly. More Niners Nightly next with your phone calls if you want to chime in. 808 KNBR, the number on the Sports Leader.
All right, welcome back. Sports Phone on a Friday.
Now, back to Niners Nightly with your host, Larry Krueger, on KNBR, the sports leader. Sports leader.
All right, we keep things rolling. It's Niners Nightly on a Friday, and I'm in an absolutely fantastic mood. You say, why? Well, not only did the Niners play great last night, so, we not a lot of, it's rare that I get to, just any time off at all. But, man, had a little free time this afternoon. And, I get a brand new salmon barbecue recipe, and I put the salmon on the grill. Oh, man, it came out so good. It was just absolutely amazing. Basically, it is soy sauce, Dijon mustard, and garlic. And you just mix, it's like a glaze. You put it on the salmon before you barbecue it. And then it's also kind of like a sauce that you can put on after it's done. Oh, it's amazing. Did some mushrooms and onions on the side. Did some so we did a little jasmine rice. Oh man, it was fantastic. You get that kind of smoky flavor. It's just tender as all get out. It was phenomenal. All right, welcome to the Food Channel. All right, we're off and running on Niners Nightly. Thanks to JD for hanging out. It's always good to talk ball with JD. 808 KNBR is the number. Who are you passionate about being on this roster? Who are you passionate about maybe not being on this roster? I'll give you my answers in a minute, but 808 KNBR is the number. We got a good half hour here. We can take some of your calls. And we got Mark, who's in the city and wants to jump in. We'll hit the lines right here. We'll take a call, and then I'll talk a little bit. Maybe we'll take a few more calls. But Mark's here in the city, and he's with us on the UMA guest line. Is it no, it's not the UMA guest line. We bring in Jacob Violante because it's a Jacob Violante Friday Night Productions. Jacob, it's not the UMA guest line. That's for the guests. The call line is called, what's the sponsor for the call line?
I think it's Industrial Metal Supply. I don't even know. I don't even know if we have a text line one. I don't know if we have a call line one.
All right. Well, maybe we'll make it up. It's the call line brought to you by Coca-Cola. And we go to Mark in San Francisco. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing good, Larry. I want to keep Jacob Crowley, definitely. I know that him and Watkins are the two guys that are the special
Not Crowley. Crowley's are the nighttime guy on KNBR. You want to keep Cowing, I think. Cowing.
Cowing. Sorry about
Cowing.
that. But yeah, you're right. Him and Watkins, definitely I want on the team. Those two guys, kick returner and punt returner. They can do both, plus play receiver. And I was watching some films of Crowley at Arizona, and he was a good receiver as well.
Right, yeah. No, he is a good receiver. He actually performed Tetaroa McMillan. They were on the same team together. He's a really good player. It's just he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And he's a little frail. He's a little on the smaller side. But man, that was a beautiful, punt return touchdown that he had. And man, it was really cool to see his teammates that invested in him too. That was neat. And he's had a lot of talent. This guy's got ball skills. He's got 4.3 speed. He's a good route runner. He's just been hurt. He had 4 different recurrences of his hamstring pull last year. And sometimes I see him at practice and he'll run a few routes, and then all of a sudden I see him on the side. He's stretching it and this and that. And I'm like, God, is this guy gonna, is he that fragile that he's gonna go down at a moment's notice? But if he can stay healthy, Jacob Cowing, I think, secured that punt returner job. I think Debo will be the kick returner. Cowing will be the punt returner. And I'd like to see a wide receiver core of Evans, Debo, Stribling, Demarcus Robinson, and I'm with you, Jordan Watkins and Jacob Cowing. And what does that mean for Christian Kirk? I don't know. I think I might trade Christian Kirk. If you could find somebody that would be willing to trade for Christian Kirk, I mean, the Texans just lost a good receiver in Jaden Higgins, and Jalen Knowles been banged up. I think I would, and he was there last year. I think I would call D'Amico and see if they've got anything over there they could throw the 49ers for Christian Kirk, because how do you put Kirk on this roster over Jordan Watkins and Jacob Cowing? I don't think you can, Mark.
So either, and the thing about it is, if Watkins, he was also taking kick returns. He's terrific. With him and Cowing at punt returners. I mean, that really gives our special team some explosive players.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and I asked John Lynch this question about 2 weeks ago because he, look at Seattle. Seattle won last year. They led the NFL in explosive play ratio. They had more explosive plays than their opponents. They were really good on defense at limiting explosives, and they were really good on offense at getting explosives. And I don't know if you saw this number, but it normally the biggest, indicator in the NFL in recent years of victory is turnovers. If you win the turnover ratio, you win the game. And like last year, if you won the turnover ratio, you won the game. I think it was like 57 or 58% of the time, which is a pretty high percentage. But last year was the first year in years that there's something greater than turnover ratio, and it's explosive ratio. If the teams that win the explosive ratio win. And so I asked Lynch, I said, did you guys go into this offseason, kind of hell bent on adding explosives? And he's like, well, first of all, we always do, right? Speed is the name of the game. We're always looking for explosive players, not just this year. But he did admit that with Seattle being so great in that area, that the Niners, were very cognizant of that when they were putting together their plan and their offseason approach, and they wanted to add explosive players. And look at the speed. I mean, look at their receiver room at the end of last year. Juwan Jennings, 4.8 40. Kendrick Bourne, 4.77 40. Malik Turner, he's not a burner. They didn't have a lot of speed last year. They were very slow. They didn't get any separation at all in that Seattle playoff game. Now look at the receiving core. Jordan Watkins, 4.37. Dejon Stribling, 4.36. Jacob Cowing, 4.37. Will Pauling, 4.37. Wesley Grimes, 4.35. They got a lot of speed. Even, Ricky Pearsall, who's not playing for them, but he's a 4.4 guy. So, I mean, the difference between what they had at receiver last year, speed-wise, and this year, night and day. And Lynch said that they were, they made an extra concerted effort this year to find the kinds of players that they think can give them big, explosive, chunk yardage gains in the pass game and in the run game. I mean, how about this? The 49ers' first 20-yard run, Mark, last year came in the Bears game. That game was in December. That was their first 20-plus yard run all season. And they have Christian McCaffrey. So, why was that the case? Well, I think it had a lot to do with the fact that the Niners didn't have a lot of speed at wide receiver. So teams were not afraid of them throwing it over the top. And so everybody was kind of leaning forward. Everybody's in the box. extra bodies in the box. Every time Christian McCaffrey got through the line of scrimmage, there's a linebacker camped 8 yards off the line of scrimmage, sitting right there. The weak side backer's like, hey, come to Papa. Or, maybe it was the strong safety, but they had a guy basically just sitting there 8 yards off the line of scrimmage, just saying, you're not getting an explosive run. And they didn't get an explosive run until, Brock Purdy got, kind of loosened up a Bears defense that was pretty challenged and made a bunch of plays. And suddenly the run game opened up and they got that 20-yard run. But that was December. They didn't, not a single 20-yard run in September, October, November. That's unbelievable, really. I mean, and it's kind of inexcusable. So their approach this year, get more explosive, and we'll see if it works. All right, Mark. Hey, always great to talk ball with you. We'll do it again soon. And it opens up a line at 808 KNBR. Mark in the city used to live out in the Sunset, and we used to shoot hoops back in the day, talking Warrior ball, sitting there at St. Ignatius High School. I lived across the street. I think he lived a couple blocks away. And, I was a teenager. He was probably in his 30s. And he'd come over. We'd be out there shooting buckets on those outside hoops by St. Ignatius High School, talking about, the Warriors. And, like, who are they going to draft? Russell Cross? Detlef Schrempf? Those are days. I mean, we're going back to the 80s. It was a long time ago. But Mark's a good man, a great sports fan, a great KNBR listener. All right. As far as, let me give you what I want to see at the cut down. Now, we got one more preseason game to go. But let's start, and we'll just go through this relatively quickly. Quarterback. I think the 49ers have so many needs at so many other spots that I don't know that they can go with 3 quarterbacks. You got Brock. I think he's going to be an MVP candidate. You got Mac Jones. Mac Jones is a gamer. He's super accurate, and he looks great in this Kyle Shanahan offense. When I watch Mac Jones, I think, man, he was born to play for Kyle Shanahan. And this is probably his last year playing for Shanahan, unless something truly unforeseen happens, because he makes $4 million, and this just in, but he's better than Malik Willis, and Malik Willis is making $40 million. So that's what happens when you become a starter in the NFL. So I don't think Mac is going to stick around too long making $4 million. Not that $4 million is anything to sneeze at. I think we would all be very satisfied with a $4 million salary, but not if you could potentially make $40 million. That's a life-changing number. And Mac's going to get that money at some point, you would think. He's playing at a really high level. So the question is, do the Niners, Curtis Rourke look good? Did he look so good that you trade Mac Jones? Did he look so good that you would make him the number 2 quarterback? Did he look so good that you would keep 3 quarterbacks on your roster despite the desperate need that you're going to have for roster spots with extra O linemen, D linemen, corners, receivers? I mean, they've got linebackers. They got extra bodies at about 4 different positions. Can they afford to go with a 3rd quarterback? I would say no. I think Adrian Martinez is a great kid, but I think he gets cut. And I think Rourke, I would look to trade Rourke. I would look to see what I could get for Rourke. Is there somebody out there? Is there more of a market for Mac Jones, or is there more of a market for Curtis Rourke? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I think I would go with Purdy and Jones and go with 2 quarterbacks. And I don't want to waive Rourke because I think he'd get picked off waivers. But I also don't want to have 3 quarterbacks on my roster when I've got this deep of a roster. So do I think Curtis Rourke is the next great quarterback? No, I don't. If I did, I would not trade him. But I do think there may be a market for him. I mean, he played at Indiana. He played an entire year on a torn ACL. I mean, that's like stuff of lore, I mean, this kid's a tough kid, and he's pretty smart. He's pretty accurate. Throws a pretty nice ball. Oh, he's 2 years in the offense, so he's not super raw. He looks kind of comfortable. He's worked on widening his base and having a better wider base to throw from. And he looked good in that preseason game against Tennessee. Now he's got an injury. But the question is, do you keep him as number 2 and trade Jones? I wouldn't. I would keep Jones as number 2 and trade Rourke. So I'm going with 2 quarterbacks. I'm not going with 3. So I would trade Rourke, and that's probably where most of you and I disagree right out of the chute. Let's move to running back. I'm going with 4 running backs because once again, you got a deep roster at other spots. You need extra guys. And I'm going with Christian McCaffrey, Kalen Black is RB2, Jordan James is RB3, and Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback. And I'm cutting everybody else. I'm cutting Garendo, Sincere McCormick, who I really like, but I would pick him back up to the practice squad. Khalil Herbert, Zamir White. If I was going with 5, I'd go with McCormick, but I'm going with 4, and I'm using that roster spot somewhere else. So McCormick to the practice squad, maybe Adrian Martinez back to the practice squad, though I'm not as convinced that that's a for sure thing. But I'm going short at quarterback with 2, and I'm going short at running back with 4. All right, let's move to tight end. I think Kittle starts on the PUP, and Kittle's probably driving around going, Krug, shut up. I don't want to go on the PUP. And that's probably what he would say to me if I said, George, you're headed for the PUP. I don't want to see George in September. George is going to try to do something that he shouldn't do. Let's find another tight end at the cutdown. Cole Kmet, Dawson Knox, Payne Durham, Colby Parkinson. All these guys are rumored to potentially be lopped off at the cutdown on August 30th. 9 days from now. I would definitely be perusing that list. I like Tonjes, but that's really all I like. I mean, Farrell to me is not impressive. He's, Kittle said he's having a better camp, and he is, but he's still not a sure-handed receiver. I've seen better blockers, considering he's considered a blocking tight end. Rucci, no. DeGuara, no. Braden Willis, though, I thought looked phenomenal in this last game. He had the block that sprung McCormick on that 37-yard run. And what he did was he picked off 2 different guys, picked off the tackle, and then he came back and picked off the backer. It was a thing of beauty, and he's in great shape. Braden Willis looks really good to me as a backup fullback. I mean, if you didn't have juice, I think Braden Willis would be a fine fullback. So I think I'll probably go with 3 tight ends. Kittle on the pup, Tonjes, Farrell, and Braden Willis make the team. But I would be open-minded to cutting Farrell or Willis for a veteran if I could get a Payne Durham, a Cole Kmet, a Colby Parkinson, those kinds of guys. And I think those kinds of guys are going to be out there. So Luke Farrell, don't get too comfortable. And Braden Willis, don't get too comfortable. I'd probably go with Willis over Farrell. I think they're going with Farrell over Willis. But I would go with no more than 3 tight ends with Kittle on the pup. And I could go with 2, Tonjes and Farrell, and play juice there a little bit. But Willis has impressed me, and I'm definitely considering him for that final roster spot at tight end. All right, let's move to offensive line. I've seen estimates where the Niners are going with 10, 11. Your backup D linemen play. Your backup O linemen you usually do not. So there's no way in hell you should go with 5 backup offensive linemen. I mean, that is a poor use of roster space. So you got McKivitz, Pooney, Brendel, Trent Williams, and we'll call it Carver Willis to start at left guard. So you got those 5 guys for sure. Then Vidarian Lowe is your swing tackle. So he's there. I like Doug Kramer, the veteran center from, he's played in Chicago. He played for the Illini. He had one of the great 40 times of almost any interior lineman. And he's a nasty mauler, brawler type who just wants to bury people. And I like Kramer, and I like what I've seen at so far. So I'm going Vidarian Lowe on the bench, Doug Kramer on the bench. And then I got one more spot, and it really comes down to 3 guys: Nick Zakelj, Connor Colby, and Robert Jones. And I think I'd go Connor Colby. I would put Nick Zakelj on the practice squad. I'd cut Enrique Cruz for sure. There's no way he makes the 53. He shouldn't make the 53. He cannot play in a game right now. He will not go claimed. He's too raw of a player. So he's going to the practice squad as well. And then offensively at receiver, I'm going Evans, Debo, Stribling, DeMarcus Robinson, Watkins, and Cowing. So I'm going 6 receivers. So there's your offense. My 3 specialists, of course, are John Weeks, Corliss Waitman, and Eddie Pinheiro. All right, let's take a phone call, and then we'll flip the card and tell you what we're thinking on defense. But let's go to the lines here. Who is on the line? We've got Sanjay. Sanjay's in San Jose, and he wants to talk about the guy that he is adamant that he wants to make this roster. Hey, Sanjay, how are you?
Good. How's it going, Krug?
Hey, it's going well, man. I'm, it's a warm night out here in the East Bay, but man, I'm excited for this 49ers season, especially after that game last night.
Yeah, me too. The guy that I'd like to see make the 53 is Garrett Wallow. I mean, a guy coming off the street and being the guy with the most tackles in a playoff game, defeating the defending world champions, and he played a heck of a game yesterday and almost had an interception. So I really like to see him. Although I know we're deep on linebackers, but with the new scheme, maybe we need to rely on linebackers more for the pass rush. So I'd like to see him make the roster.
Yeah, I you know what? I'm with you. I thought Wallow had a hell of a game. I was looking at the PFF rankings, and somebody said that he was one of the lowest ranked players. I'm like, what in the heck are you guys basing your rankings on? He was everywhere last night. He was incredible last night. Wallow was closing ground. He was making big hits. He seriously was a play or two away from having a monster night. I thought Wallow was terrific last night. I don't know that I agree with you because to me it's about who clears waivers. Is Larry Worth or Jaden Duggar or Nick Martin more likely to clear waivers, or is Garrett Wallow more likely to clear waivers? And I just think that Garrett Wallow, there's going to be a lot of Garrett Wallows out there. And even though I think he's a really good special teamer and a really solid player, I don't want to lose Larry Worth, and I won't lose Nick Martin, and I'm not going to lose Jaden Duggar, and I'm going with 6 linebackers. So, I think this is going to be a tough one. It may come down to an injury, but my 6 linebackers would be obviously Fred and Dre, Tatum Bethune, Nick Martin, Jaden Duggar, and Larry Worth. And I would cut Luke Gifford, despite the fact he's a Pro Bowl special teamer. I would cut Jalen Graham, and I'd probably cut Garrett Wallow. Not because I don't like Garrett Wallow, just because I don't want. To me, you've got 3 really intriguing young hybrid type players who can rush the passer and make big plays. How do you get Larry Worth? He's 6'4", 220. He blankets the tight end. Jaden Duggar looks like a total natural. And Nick Martin is maybe the best overall athlete on the defense. And he's just so freaking violent. I mean, he had that forced fumble last night. He's just a big play waiting to happen. So I think I would try to keep all 3 of those guys. And if that means I got to waive Gifford and Graham and Wallow, I'm doing it. But I'm with you. I thought Wallow, if I have to go with one more linebacker, I think I would go with Wallow and over Gifford, even though Gifford's a Pro Bowl special teamer, because Wallow looks amazing. And he had 11 tackles in that Eagle game last year. Much respect. And that was a freezing cold game, wind howling, on the road, all those Eagle idiots yelling their heads off. And this guy played just a perfect game. 11 tackles. He was everywhere. He was moving Alfred Collins and C.J. West around, and then communicating on that first and second level of the defense on every snap. It was impressive. It was impressive, man. He Wallow has my respect. Yeah, I have total respect for Garrett Wallow. Yeah, he and if he makes the roster over Larry Worth, I'm just hoping Larry Worth squeezes through waivers. But I would take Worth over him because I'm afraid Worth won't. I don't want to lose Worth. He's just really, really special. But I know what you're saying. Wallow looked great last night. All right, Sanjay, have a great night in San Jose, man. And it opens up a line at 808 KNBR. Couple more thoughts on the defense. So I'm going 6 linebackers, and there's your 6. Now, in the secondary, I'm going 4 safeties. Malik Mustafa, Jair Brown, Marquise Siegel. And here's the question. I know Brant Boyer wants that 4th guy to be Saron Neal, and he's a very good special teamer. But, man, how about Jalen Stroman last night? I thought Jalen Stroman was everywhere. You know, he's supposed to be a guy that has real limitations as far as coverage, but he looks like one of the more physical safeties they have. So I'd go with Stroman as the fourth safety. The corners I'm going with are Renardo, Lenore, and Stout, Jack Jones, Prysock, Luter, and Robinson. I'm not going to give away my cornerback. I'm going to retain my cornerback inventory. If I got to go 6, I'll go 6. If I got to go 7, I'll go 7. I'm not cutting good corners. And then D line wise, I think this is where it's going to be really interesting. I think they're going to go 10 D linemen, 5 DNs, 5 defensive tackles. Your DNs are Mikel Bosa, Keon White, Sam Aquinu, and Romello Height. If you go with another one because of Mikel being out, go Ogbo Okoronkwo. And it's not that hard of a call. I thought he was far and away the best. And then the big move that I would make is my 5 defensive tackles, Osa Odigizua, Grayson Halton, Bryson Eason, James Thompson Jr., and either CJ West or Alfred Collins, and I'm going CJ West. So I'm not cutting Alfred Collins, but I'm trading Alfred Collins. I'm not going to let Bryson Eason or James Thompson or Grayson Halton not make this team because of Alfred Collins. They've outplayed him. James Thompson Jr. was the highest rated 49er defender last night of any position. The guy has 36 reps at 225. He's got weight room strength, but he's got functional strength. He looked really, really good. He's got to be on the team. So there you go. There you have it. I'm trading Alfred Collins, and I don't like it, but you know what? He's been beaten out by Bryson Eason, by Grayson Halton, by James Thompson. Chris Kasarik told me in July, he said, hey, man, we had draftable grades on Eason and Thompson, and they have shown it in this summer. Eason is 6'4", 220, or 6'4", 320, and he runs like a linebacker. Thompson is 6'6", 310, and he's one of the strongest defensive linemen I've seen. The guy had 36 reps at 225, which is about 30 more than I can do. So I'm impressed. All right. That is going to do it. That was the quickest hour there is. But thanks to you for jumping in via the calls. Thanks to JD for being our guest in the first part of the show. And thanks, of course, well, first of all, to all you guys. And thanks to everybody who participates. We moved the times around, right? So obviously, we got the great Jacob Violante producing for us, and thanks to Jacob. But we also, thanks to you guys for finding us. We were 6 to 7 Monday through Friday, but then with the Giants being on the East Coast this week, Mike's like, hey, would you do some stuff on the radio after SportsPhone? I said, absolutely. So really glad to be on the radio this week. And next week, of course, the Niners will be off on Monday. They'll be taking on the Raiders. They'll practice Tuesday. They'll be off on Wednesday. They'll play the Raiders in that final preseason game on Thursday. And then there's a little break before the Niners, obviously are going to go 9 days ahead to go to Australia in September 10th. They play the Rams in Australia. Huge game for both teams. All right, that is going to do it for us. Thanks to Jacob. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to JD. Have a great night, and we'll see you Monday on the Sports Leader.